Hey, Board Game Geeks, this is Brian Hazard here. Today we're going to be doing a review for a game you've never heard of. It's called Where's My Chainsaw, and it's going to be being released on GameCrafter pretty soon. I think in August of 2017 here coming up. Where's My Chainsaw is an homage to Munchkin, and the designers had the intent of creating a game with the same feel of Munchkin that's easy to learn and play, but to make some what they felt are humble improvements to the mechanics of Munchkin. Zombie apocalypse theme, which makes for interesting, and the cards are very funny. They have lots of references that everybody should be familiar with. Unlike Munchkin, where the object of the game is to get to level 10, the object of the game in Where's My Chainsaw, there's actually two of them. Each character is unique and has a unique victory condition. So if you meet your victory condition, you win the game. However, there's another victory condition, and that is to be the last person standing. So, if you are the last person who has not died, you automatically win the game. So a lot of what they've done to change Munchkin is to take away some of those sort of super random things that happen to you. You never fight a monster in this game, as far as I know, you never fight a monster in this game unless you want to. There are no traps, because traps take away the responsibility of players to play take-that cards on other players. If you make an agreement with another player that is happening right now, like I'll give you this card if you give me that card, you have to abide by that. However, no other agreements are binding. So you can say, I'll give you this at the next trade phase, which is the only time that you can trade things, but you don't actually have to. And take the consequences that go with screwing one of the players while all the other players are watching you do it. Trading is super important in this game because a lot of the players require items as their victory condition in order to win the game. So every player has their character that has a base combat value at the top. Unlike Munchkin, you don't start at level 1. You start with whatever your combat value is. Every player has a special ability and their victory condition. My victory condition is I need to get 13 hero points. Looks like Kendra's position, she needs 10 hero points and 15 nasty. Nasty is actually earned by killing monsters. You keep their corpses like trophies, and they are worth various levels of nasty.
Mine is 2 antidotes, 3 survivors.
So she's going to find item cards that have antidote and survivor icons on them. And if you find 2 of one and 3 of the other, you'll win the game. And Carrie, she needs to find 5 survivors and have them with her. And if she does that, she wins the game. So each of us have that. We also have a couple of cards underneath our characters to keep track of hero points and our health. Your health is indicated in the bottom left right corner of your card. So for example, my guy starts with 5 health. If you're ever at 0 health after step 5 of a turn, then you die. And at that point, you are no longer eligible for the last man standing victory condition. You're just going to have to work towards this one right here. Okay. As the game goes on, note that hero points are not the same as levels in Munchkin. Hero points are really just a currency that you can use to benefit you to work towards your particular goal, because you can trade them in for things. Okay. Everybody starts the game with 2 of these. These are special cards. Special cards are never played in front of you. They're either in your hand or in a discard pile. Okay. These are, unlike in Munchkin, where there's all sorts of different kinds of cards in both piles. You got the treasure deck and the door deck. This separates things out. You have a weapon deck, and the weapon deck gets gradually stronger. So you have level 1 weapons, you have level 2 weapons, and you have level 3 weapons. If you ever make it all the way through the deck, you just get rid of all the level 1 weapons, shuffle the 2s and 3s together, and then you have that mixed deck for the rest of the game. Same with the enemies. They start weak and they get stronger. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Items don't have levels like that, but they are a mixture of just fun and funny things that you can get your hands on. This deck will always have either play immediately cards, which are almost always cards that say grab a weapon, or they will be special cards you keep in your hand, or mutations. Mutations are just cards you play on a monster to screw another player by making that monster stronger. Those are fun. That's what we call fun. You may... so you can have in your hand, with 4 players, you can have up to 4 cards in your hand at any time. The game designers strongly recommend that you play special cards as much as possible. Don't hold them. It's a shame to discard them. You'll be tempted to save them for a good time. That is not. It is better to cycle through them, use them as often as possible. Okay? Items and weapons will always go down in front of you. So for example, if I get this weapon here, this is a +1 skateboard. The finger means it takes 1 hand to use this weapon. If it does this, it means it needs 2 hands to use that weapon. Okay? So this is a one-handed weapon. It can go down in front of me, and now whenever I do combat, I can choose to use my skateboard in combat. You can have multiple weapons in front of you, but when you go into battle, you have to decide which ones you're going to use for that battle. Okay? And you can change that each time you go into combat. You can pick a different thing to use, like your cordless drill or your corkscrew. Okay? They give you a combat bonus for when you're fighting monsters. Monsters fighting is just like in Munchkin. This is the combat value of the monster. You have to surpass the combat value of the monster to kill it. You have to surpass it, not meet it, beat it. If you win, you get a hero point, which is similar to levels in Munchkin, but in this case it's more of a currency. You get this many items, and you get this much nasty. So you actually take the dead monster and put it in front of you on the table, and you're going to be able to use that later. Now, some people, like Alice over here, needs nasty to win the game. However, at any time you're in combat, you can discard 3 nasty worth of monsters. Think of it as knowledge you've gained while fighting other monsters, and give yourself a +1 combat. So it's a way of sort of affecting combat that way. If you can't beat the monster, you have an uh-oh effect down here at the bottom, and that'll happen to you. Just like in Munchkin, if you don't have enough to beat a monster, you can scream for help. When you scream for help, there's actually a specific way to do it. You have to go to your left, and you say to that person, "Help!" That person will then make an offer. They'll say, "I will help you for 1 item." They can actually ask for anything other than cards in your hand or health. Everything else is up for trade. Now, you cannot counteroffer. You either accept their offer as is. They can't make a second offer either. Or you pass. Then the next person, they will make an offer. If you accept their offer, you can only have one person help you in combat, but once you have an agreement, then they will add their combat to your combat. They can play cards, special cards as needed into the combat, all that good stuff. Other players can always affect combat by playing special cards to make things harder or more funny, depending on how that goes. That being said, any sort of deals that are made for combat also don't have to be kept. Anything that doesn't happen in that very moment is not binding. A lot of this game is about social contracts and that sort of, making and breaking, that sort of thing. If you win the combat, you'll draw items off the top. Some items have a garbage can like this, and that means you discard them to use them. Okay. Most all weapons and items have a little value down here at the bottom. During your turn, there's a scavenge portion where you can trade in $40 worth of stuff and draw a new item card. So you can always get rid of old stuff. Another nice tweak here is you can get rid of old stuff and be able to draw new items off of the deck so that you can have better stuff as the game moves forward. At the beginning of your turn, any player can trade with any player. Then the second step, you can either draw 2 special cards on your turn or you draw an enemy. So you always get to decide whether you're going to fight. But if you don't want to fight, just draw special cards, put them in your hand, and then you can either discard down at the end of your turn to get to your hand limit or be done. You can spend hero points, and right here it has a little thing that shows you what you can spend your hero points on. So you can draw an item card, search for a survivor, search for an antidote. So that's going to be good for you guys where your victory conditions is antidotes and survivors and that sort of thing. Or you can spend 5 points to draw an enemy card and combat it, which is good because that means you could actually fight twice in one turn. You could draw one off the enemy deck, and then during your scavenge phase you could do that. Then you have to discard down to 4 cards in your hand and check to see if you die. If you don't, then we go on to the next player's turn. That is the gist of the game. It is very Munchkin-like. We are going to play through this, and then any willing participants who are interested in giving a review of the game afterwards will do so. And we'll go from there. I will see you after the jump.
Hands.
I'm going to take a moment here to show some appreciation for some of these monsters. We got plain old zombie.
So it does not take hands, and it's just...
Severed hands, just +2 combat, road flare.
Just like...
It's a nice one.
I got.
And then you have the severed foot, which is actually worse, even tougher than the severed hand. And then you have, like, the... what do you have dead here? The enemy zombie penguin, because why not?
Yeah, because why not?
Zombie cat. He can has cheeseburger. That is a super dated reference, but it's still funny. Other half zombie. So that's where they went.
Yeah.
I like the monsters.
Yeah,
And
I don't
also
have
we had-
any monsters. I just have a banana.
Especially
Look at that.
like...
Big damn
zombie.
heroes. Somebody write in the comments who they think is in the
Penguin.
black trench coat. I think it's supposed to
It
be...
looks like Malin Castle.
I think it's supposed to be Ash, because I think this is supposed to be Ash, right? But he's got the
but
hand
he's
chainsaw.
Not, he's totally not. Look at
It's
the
a different-
belt buckle and the coats. It's Mal.
Face is similar.
It's Mal and Castle.
And a Balisong pen and a corkscrew. And what's your item?
I have a banana peel, a berserker attack, and a horror movie chick.
Who is a
I also
minus
have
one
a
com.
car lighter, so I'll burn you.
That's yeah. Oh, nice. And the minus one combat from the horror movie chick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Okay, so some interesting weapons of note throughout this game. Thank you very much. Miriam's condition is to get 3 survivors and 2 antidotes. She waited till she built up 5 hero points, or 10 hero points?
10 hero points.
She had 10 hero points, and she spent 5 of them twice to search for the top antidote, which then won her the game. And I feel like, if I had thought of that, if I had known that was an option, I would have been being meaner to you, or done, I don't know, something, anything?
But how would you have known? It's not like you have one of these little reference cards in front of you that would tell.
Well, and it was that little.
Oh, you do.
Yeah, I do. I do have that. Yeah, I do have a little card that tells me things. But that little girl that gave you the extra hero point is what put you over the top.
Both of your faults.
What?
I warned you all about this.
Okay, so thoughts on Where's My Chainsaw? Miriam.
It's a cute game. And I agree that in some ways it kind of has the cute fun of Munchkin without some of the things that some people don't like as much about Munchkin. I guess what I would say is it takes Munchkin and tightens it up. And it keeps it from going on for hours on end, probably. Maybe halfway through the game, I thought I would be giving it a pretty negative review because I felt like I wasn't getting stuff, but I realized that was just my own fault because at some point you got to jump in and fight.
Right, you gotta start punching things.
Yeah, and once I did, everything turned around. So kill stuff and you'll feel good.
Kill stuff and
That's
you
the
will
moral of the
feel
story.
good. That is the moral of the story. I like that. Carrie, Where's My Chainsaw? What did you think?
I think the flavor is a lot of fun. Just all of the references really plays exactly to kind of our demographic and age era. I mean, all the different horror. It was a lot of fun. A lot of funny stuff is going on here. Yeah, it definitely gives a lot of that Munchkin feel as far as, beating up on enemies and getting stuff. And I like that we all have different goals to go for. Instead of just everyone's trying to get to 10 points. So you've got to pay attention across the board what's going on.
Yeah, I think at first the game was going slow because we were expecting more to happen in the early game, but even true of Munchkin, nothing does. You have to get
no build up.
Right, you have to get your cards into your hand. You have to do stuff in order to start making it happen. And I think one of the things they intentionally did is that even the level 1 monsters are a little out of your range at the beginning of the game, so you have to ask for help, which means people are way more likely to start stabbing each other in the back.
We didn't fight enough.
Yeah, I think we didn't fight enough. I think we were all playing it super safe, and we didn't. A whole lot of monsters didn't get sort of put into the equation.
I finally realized I needed to fight.
Right, because you needed nasty for your particular character. So that's a good.
Hold on, let me just add one thing in response to Carrie's, which is that I come at the flavor from the opposite perspective. When the two of you would start talking about the flavor and who this character is and who this one is and having these debates, I had no idea who you were talking about. None. I mean, there were zombies and you're just throwing random names out there. I had no idea who you were talking about.
So,
pretty much
when we say
time.
Ash, you don't know who Ash is?
I have no idea who Ash is. I have
enough.
no idea what you guys were talking about. I still thought it was cute and funny, so don't feel like watching this if you're like, oh my god, well that whole flavor, I won't even get any of it, I'll miss it. It's still cute. It's still fun. I think it's good anyway.
Okay, good. All right.
Just a ton of hot era references
They're very
sprinkled throughout this.
There is very much so. Okay.
But it's also just fun. And I played a lot of Munchkin, and this is a lot better in the sense that it moves better, I feel. I felt like a lot of times we were getting bogged down with Munchkin, and it just got kind of boring, and we were all getting tired, and it was just like, ugh. But this moved. It really moved, and once I realized I actually had to fight people, which... at first I was just like, I'm just going to hold this card and start stealing. But that didn't happen. So.
I did have a couple of cards I really wanted to play. I had one called I Don't Think So. and it just cancels other special cards.
I was waiting for my dimensional drift one, or dimensional portal.
Oh, so just make things go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a really good one where I'm just like, well, I can make this all go away for you.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think what's cool about this game is that I should talk at the camera.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things I like about this game is that when the game ends, it ends because of the intentional actions of the winner. So in Munchkin, eventually someone's going to win as a result of people running out of cards to attack them with. Like, it just comes to a grind. So somebody eventually will win simply because nobody can stop them. And that doesn't feel so much as like a victory as it does an inevitability. Whereas in this case, Miriam won because she played right. She took the survivor she needed. Because if she had taken the other survivor, she would have had equal number of survivors, but she would have only been able to use her hero points to get one antidote because she had 9. So she took the right survivor who gave her an extra hero point, which was the little girl, and then that gave her enough points to be able to draw 2 antidotes out of nowhere. So that was, as a result, I feel like, of her doing it right, as opposed to us just not being able to stop her from winning. So I like that. And I also like a lot of the references. It's true that most of them, like the weapons and stuff, you wouldn't need to know anything about. Like, you don't need to know that 2 cups of kitty litter and a cup of gasoline makes rudimentary napalm for that to be funny. I think you could figure that out. Chainsaw hand. This is Ash, by the way. This is Ash. He has a chainsaw hand. He's from the Evil Dead. But you don't have to have seen the Evil Dead to appreciate the chainsaw hand. That's good stuff. So, I also like the art. I think it's really kind of cool.
It's comical enough to balance out kind of the gore and horror on it.
Right, the hairspray flamethrower makes up for the
PJ pants.
Right.
And I still think the zombie cat is just awesome.
Where's
It was
the-
very cute. It made me laugh.
And,
But I like cats.
So, right, there's a little blood and gore all over the floor, and me without my spoon. And it's a
And we even
lawnmower.
had to look up something.
Right, we had to look this up. I didn't know. I knew nothing about the Balisong pen. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So overall, I think a relatively positive review of Where's My Chainsaw. So again, this is going to be available on GameCrafter very soon, and there is a page for it on Board Game Geek. And I know Undead Viking also did a review on it some time ago. A few months ago, if you want to take a look at that. Geeks, listen, I'm back for a little more information. That might have been the end of the review, but a few days later, I was able to play Where's Mine Chainsaw at a friend's house where it was a big party, and we actually had an 8-player game of nefarious people that played Where's My Chainsaw. And I wanted to report to you about that because it ended up being a lot different experience than when I played with Kendra, Miriam, and Carrie, in which the game ended kind of quick and things were relatively tame, and there wasn't a lot of take that going on. I mean, it was there. But one of the things that the designers had talked about is that this game really calls for people who are willing to stress the social contract and maybe not follow through on what they agree to do. So this 8-player game that I got to play, Where's My Chainsaw, was a much different experience. It was much meaner. It was a lot of action. Because some of these were people I didn't know, I wasn't able to record that, and I didn't want to sort of put them on the spot. So I do want to tell you that in that game, it was much closer. There was a number of people in an 8-player game that almost reached their victory condition. As a matter of fact, the character Samford, whose objective is to get 300 item points, was at 290 item points. They were actually at 230, I think, when somebody made a ridiculous deal with them. No, they were at 220, and somebody made a ridiculous deal and gave them 70 item points on a trade that gave them kind of close to what they needed. It was actually Alice who did it, this stinker. She wanted the nasty points, so she got 7 nasty and traded 70 item points, which almost put Samford over the end. And we thought for certain he was going to be the one to win, and then out of nowhere, it was our friend with the survivors. And keep in mind, I do believe... No. When Miriam won, she had Alice. So this person came out of nowhere and got the survivors. He had a couple lucky item draws, and then he spent some hero points and was able to get one and was able to pull it off. I will say that it was my opinion during an 8-player game that it would have been great if we had more cards to work with, special cards. Because in an 8-player game, you can only have 2 special cards in your hand. And people were flying like crazy. And I gotta tell you, the cards in this game are really funny, and a number of them that came out were pretty hilarious in the way that they worked, snatching each other's weapons and items from each other. giving people wounded legs and arms. There was one guy who got the wounded leg and then the wounded arm. Like, he was never able to help anybody until he healed. It was great. And some people just got pummeled mercilessly. One of the ways to win the game is last man standing. And within the first round, before some of us had even taken a turn, I was player 6 out of 8. And by the time I got to my turn, 3 people were already dead. It was fantastic. And 5 out of 8 people did die at the table. There was a constant awareness of who was dead and who was alive. It was just a feisty group. And I think that the best recommendation I can make for this game is that this is a game for feisty groups. People that aren't going to be entirely honest. There's a variant in there where you can just cheat maniacally at the back, and that's fine if that's what you want to do, but the game doesn't need that. In its design, the primary thing to be paying attention to is the social contract and whether or not you choose to keep that. There was a point at which during the game that I asked someone to help, they agreed, and when it was over, I wasn't feeling inclined to give him what I told him I would give him. And what was interesting is that you would think, okay, well then nobody else will trust you. But I actually took a vote at the table how many people thought I should actually give him what I said I would. And nobody wanted me to because he was doing too well. So the whole table agreed to screw him and gave me permission to do so. So I actually didn't suffer anything, any consequence as a result of doing that. I didn't lose any trustworthiness at the table because the table agreed that it was fine to hose Andy. So that's really a fun part of the game, is deciding whether you follow through, when you do and when you don't, who cares when you do and when you don't, and that is an important part of this game. The game, I would argue, has a bit more strategy than Munchkin because it takes away traps and it takes away the inevitable victory by level that somebody, if this person doesn't get it, then the next person will because you run out of cards. It takes that away, but then it requires of you to provide that thinking, that strategy ahead of time, thinking 2 or 3 turns ahead of time, paying attention to what all the victory conditions are at the table, and then deciding, talking to people, table talking based on that. That made for a great game, and I really enjoyed playing Where's My Chainsaw in a larger group with a group that really sort of took advantage of the guidelines it gives for whether or not you follow social contract. So let me say that this game is actually going to be available very soon on GameCrafter, and I do not know what the price point is. I think it's going to be $20 or $30, and I will put a link in this video once that link becomes available. But if you're interested, if you think Munchkin could use some more teeth, or you enjoy a game that's easy to learn and relatively quick to play and quite a fun game with a half dozen people, then I highly recommend Where's My Chainsaw. You can take a look at it on GameCrafter. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Thanks, everybody. I will see you guys on The Geek. Take care.